Oh, look at that. That's the cutest little face I ever saw. Can you give me some sugar? You so sweet, you sweet. Hey, you were saying thank you.
Miss Millie always going on over the cup.
Your children are so clean. Would you like to work for me? Be my maid?
Hell no.
What did you say?
Hell no. What did she say?
Hey, can't you pump that crude a little faster?
Gal, what did you say to Miss Millie?
I said hell.
Oh, Miss Sophia. No! Miss Sophia, no!
Get my children out of here! Take them home! Get my children home! Get my children out of here! You black slut! Who do you think you are? Leave me alone! Touch me! I've been watching you! Who do you think you are, you fat man? God! Thank God! Help me! Help me!
The not guilty verdict in the George Zimmerman trial has sparked new discussions about and protests of the Stand Your Ground law that originated in Florida in 2005. Since then, the Stand Your Ground law has been invoked in more than 200 cases in Florida where charges were dismissed or defendants were acquitted or not even charged at all. One case that doesn't fit that description is Marissa Alexander's. She's the 32-year-old Jacksonville, Florida mother who in 2010 fired a single bullet that lodged in her kitchen ceiling. Alexander says that she fired a warning shot to scare off her husband, who was confronting her in a rage over some text messages on her phone. Her husband later admitted to previous domestic violence against Alexander, but no matter. Despite claiming that she stood her ground and acted in self-defense, Alexander received a 20-year mandatory minimum sentence in May of last year for shooting a ceiling. Joining us from Jacksonville is Democratic Congresswoman Corrine Brown, representative of Florida's 5th District and one of Alexander's most vocal supporters. Joining our panel here in New York is MSNBC host and attorney Ari Melber and Christina Swarns of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. Representative Brown, I want to start with you. You have been such a fierce advocate for Marissa Alexander. Tell me in your words why this case is so important.
Well, first of all, I want to tell you that your father is correct. 50 years later, each one of us still have to continue to work to make things better.
Yep.
I mean, so the fight goes on. Yep. First of all, this female, warning shot, the day that it happened, the day that it happened, it was a restraining order against her husband.
Yeah.
She was beaten when she was pregnant and put in the hospital by her husband.
Yep.
I mean, and the way Stand Your Ground worked, the officer write it up. And so the judge decide. And so if you have an officer writing it up that's not trained, it's a problem.
So let me
And let me tell you, the week before, someone was convicted of murder, got 15 years.
Right.
So, I mean, the disparity and the discretion there on how the prosecutor charged is totally unacceptable.
Okay, and so that's exactly what I want to ask you about, Representative Brown, because it's not just some prosecutor out in this world. It is Angela Corey, the exact same prosecutor who made a decision, despite the fact that there were 6 women on the Zimmerman jury, to not even bother to prosecute Zimmerman herself, to send the other folks. That's you talking there with Ms. Corey. But she aggressively went after Marissa Alexander. Why the disparity?
I cannot tell you that, but if you look at Jacksonville, we have a 50% direct filing of youth. Direct filing, that means we're filing them as felons. That is the new slavery. They will never be able to get a decent job. The person that was the prosecutor before, Harry Shosteen, he had a program that we work with youth in our community. And this is what happens when people do not go to the ballot box.
Yep.
Clearly. You need to ask the right questions and make sure that you are electing people that are going to work with the community.
Representative Brown, hold for me for one moment. So, Christine, I want to ask you a question. Why would Marissa Alexander have even needed stand your ground? She was in her home, which is castle doctrine, which is law in all 50 states, right? Why does she even need stand your ground?
Well, I'm not sure whether she needs stand your ground or not, but I do know that what it seems to have happened in this case is the judge says, based on her behavior around the time she fires the shots, it doesn't seem like she was afraid. It doesn't seem like she was acting in fear for her life. And what I think is lost in that conversation is, aside from the issues of race, is this history of abuse of this woman, right? Just
and
like
the baby
president
was 8 days old.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And like the president yesterday said, we have to understand context.
Yes.
And we have to look at a situation in the context of history. Marissa Alexander's judgment in that moment has to be viewed through the lens of the abuse she sustained through the course of that relationship. And I don't know Miss Alexander, but I don't know whether there's a family history of abuse. So she's making a judgment from a history of abuse from this man as to whether or not she was in mortal danger. That was just completely absent from the analysis of what happened here. And that was a mistake.
Yes. Representative Brown, yes.
Let me say, she had a master's degree. She worked her way through school.
Yep.
She had no priors. So this was her first offense.
Yep. And we have sent this woman to jail for 20 years. And you said it, but I don't want the audience to miss it. When all of this happened, when this man who has admitted that he has abused this woman, as well as
4 others.
And others.
This woman and 4 others.
Yes, that there was her 8-day-old baby. Was
That's
in
right.
That, and we have decided to send her away for 20 years.
That's right. But what was offered to her was, we will give you 3 years, you become a felon, and you give up the custody of your child.
Oh.
Help me, somebody.
That was her plea bargain option?
That was her plea bargain. And so when I mentioned it to her, she said, well, I offered her 3 years. I said 3 years is not mercy and 20 years is not justice.
Come on. That's right.
Okay, I want to bring Nina Turner in here, in part because there's church going on at the table, and I want Nerdland to be part of it. But when Representative Brown said you must vote, I heard you respond to that, and it does feel like, I keep feeling like, is Angela Corey running for office? Right. And does she think that there's a reason why the prosecution of Marissa Alexander and not the prosecution of George Zimmerman is the right thing to do?
I mean, Representative Brown is dead on about, we have to elect people, better people who understand that these types of laws are not the way we should go in this country. We all have the power in that case, and that's what I don't want us to lose here, that if we ever want to do something about the proliferation of these stand your ground laws and other laws, whether it's voter suppression or whatever it is, we have to elect people who have a consciousness. For her to have to prove her worth as a human being, there's not an American who couldn't understand that concept, that you have a group of people who are purely American, born in this country, that have to prove their worth generation after generation in this country. How rapists get less than what this mother who was trying to protect her life and her child got. This is a Dr. Martin Luther King moment, Professor, and it is injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
And Representative Brown, that is, Congresswoman Brown, this is part of why your advocacy on this has been so important. Thank you so much for joining us from Florida.
Thank you.
And coming up, the next major test for the Stand Your Ground law, we're going to talk to the father of slain teenager Jordan Davis, and also my letter to the woman who inspired me and so many others this week. But first, a quick programming note. This week, the legendary Stevie Wonder announced that he will not perform in Florida until it abolishes the Stand Your Ground law, or in any state where the law exists. So for the next hour, you're going to be hearing all Stevie throughout our show. More Nerdland at the top of the hour.